One complaint that I hear quite often is that postural restoration is too hard to understand, and people want to have it simplified. The problem is not that PRI is hard to understand. Actually, I think it's simple to understand once you arrive at the big picture. And arriving at the big picture just means you have to chip away at your previously held model of how the human body works and how humans move and stabilize themselves. So we all use models. In life, you're going to see something a particular way, and you use a model for that. People may look at life through a very religious model, whatever their particular religion is. People may look at life through a very political model. They may see dollar signs everywhere. Maybe economics and finance is the most important thing. So to them, every opportunity is a money opportunity. You know, everyone has a model. Even if you say you don't have a model, that's still a model, because the human mind works on models. The only way you don't have a model is if you're not thinking. But since you're human and you're going to be thinking, you're modeling. And models are based on a conditioned mind. Your mind has been conditioned over years and years and years of life. And you are picking up different ideas. You're learning things in school. You're being influenced by your family, where you live. You know, someone in Nebraska and someone in New Jersey, North Jersey, maybe not South Jersey, because South Jersey is like a different state, but in North Jersey, you know, and Nebraska are very different places. So someone growing up in Nebraska and someone growing up in North Jersey probably aren't going to approach life in the same way. You know, the whole idea of red state, blue state, it's real because we have different ways of looking at life. But the same thing happens with the human body. When people say that PRI is too hard to understand, it's because they already have a previously held model of how things work and how pain occurs and how to help people out of pain. And what people quickly realize is that model, that I'm going to call it the more mechanical model of bones and muscles, so the more orthopedic model, doesn't really work that well. Because people they see a painful shoulder and they try to work on the shoulder as if the shoulder is the issue, instead of thinking, is the shoulder just the victim of a deeper issue? But the crazy thing is, what could be simpler than this? Humans are asymmetrical. You have a left side and a right side. And because of how our brain works and how our body has that bigger right diaphragm, we're all right dominant, and when that right dominance becomes too excessive, our normal asymmetry becomes a little bit too extreme, and now we can no longer move and stabilize and breathe in an upright position without compensatory muscle function. So we stop moving like a normal human being should. That's it. Is that really that hard to understand? I don't think it really is. Which means people need to get better on their left side and their right side, but mostly left side. And then they need to be able to walk, breathe, and stabilize without compensation. That's it. That's not hard to understand. What is hard to understand is how you get someone from, okay, they're stuck in this pattern, and they've lost the ability to move side to side in the frontal plane, which means they've lost the ability to rotate properly. Rotation is the most difficult part. How do you get them now to become a normal, functioning, walking, stabilizing, breathing human? And that's where the model comes in. If you think that you can just work on a bunch of exercises and have that person now move functionally from side to side perfectly and rotate perfectly and breathe, stabilize, and walk without compensation, you can try that, and it might work to some degree, because if you're using PRI techniques, it will work pretty well, because the neuromechanical, the neurological aspect is built into every technique, whether you realize it or not. But what if you had learned initially? What if the first thing you learned about the human body was what I just described? The left side or right side, there's asymmetry, and we lose the ability to shift from side to side in the frontal plane and rotate without compensatory activity. We have difficulty breathing without compensatory activity when these patterns get too extreme. If that was the first thing you learned, would it really be that difficult? And my guess would be no. So I'm just going to read, I got this off Wikipedia, okay? Now, what if you learned initially that the most important things to changing movement were proprioceptors and mechanoreceptors? So proprioceptors are found inside of muscles and joints and ligaments that give your brain a sense of motion and stability when standing upright and walking, and it helps you plan and refine movements. It provides you a sense, your brain, a sense of position. Are we not always talking about position in PRI? Orientation, position. Is that difficult to understand? That's not controversial. Good. Mechanoreceptors. These neurons respond to mechanical pressure found in skin and are directly linked to muscle activation and sensory motor control. Is that hard to understand? It's not hard to understand. It's on Wikipedia. It's well known. This is in the research. It's not something PRI came up with. What PRI realized, or what Ron realized, was that those two things, that sense of position, that ability to sense position and where you are and where you're going and what your movements are, what your body is doing, and those mechanoreceptors that's responding to pressure from the ground coming up into you so your brain can sense the ground. That is how you change muscle function. That is way more important than mobilizing joints. Joints usually don't have to be mobilized on someone who hasn't been injured because there's nothing to mobilize. They're just stuck in a pattern. They're stuck in a position that they can't get out of. So proprioceptive sense and mechanoreceptors that are responding to pressure from the ground. And if you look at this picture, you'll see me doing a standing toe touch. One picture is me in dress shoes that I was at a funeral actually, and I was wearing dress shoes for about 2 hours, and you'll see how limited I am in my straight leg raise. I must have straight leg raise. Standing toe touch. I'm sure my straight leg raise would be limited also. You'll see that I'm really limited. Now look at the next picture. I now put on my shoes with my insoles, with my orthotic. I'm unrestricted. That was literally 5 seconds later. What was I using? I was using proprioceptive sense of my own body and mechanoreceptors to tell my brain where I was, to give myself a sense of position and orientation, to know where the ground was, and look how my body relaxed. Could stretching or doing any type of exercise, squatting, breathing, whatever, have changed that? If I hadn't known what to sense, no. There was nothing to stretch. Nothing was tight. That was central nervous system activity. That was tension, not tightness. That was tension. My brain was freaking out because I was in those damn shoes for 2 hours, and I am insanely sensitive. This doesn't happen with every single person, but it's just an example. It does happen with a lot of people. If you're in a pattern, you've lost that left heel, you've lost that arch of the right foot, you've lost your mechanoreceptors in those areas, your brain is not making sense of the ground. You now lose proprioceptive sense. And now the pattern that you're in becomes the new normal because you've lost internal proprioceptive sense and you've lost mechanoreceptor sense of the ground in these two vital areas, which are the left heel and the arch of the right foot, and sometimes the right big toe also. When I went out to Nebraska in August, I was wearing those same sneakers. I knew at that point I had a visual issue. And I went out there. Ron had me stand on my left leg and reach forward and touch my right toe. And that's the picture that you're seeing right there. I could not do that with the prescription that I had, my old prescription. Even with my good sneakers on, my good orthotics, I couldn't do it. I still had back tension. He changed my prescription. Well, he put a different, these little, viewfinder things on me, had me try again, and I could do it a lot easier. It wasn't, I felt maybe the slightest bit of tension, but almost nothing. And then they put on another little viewfinder thing with a little bit of prism built in that changed my brain's perception of the ground and moved it up into me. And what you see in that picture is what I did effortlessly. Effortlessly, effortlessly. I was able to stand there and breathe. I could not have done that with my old prescription. Why? Because my prescription, my system was so thrown off for so many years, I couldn't perceive the ground. And when you can't perceive the ground, because you've lost mechanoreceptor sense, and you've probably also lost proprioceptive sense of where your body is, you know how many people think they're on their left leg? And when I say put your weight on the left leg, instead of being like this, they're like this. To them, their weight is on the left leg, but their upper body is still to the right. And I say, pick up your right foot. And then they have to figure out, how do I pick up my right foot? Oh, I gotta move my weight onto my left leg. Their proprioceptive sense was so thrown off by being to the right for so long that they don't know what straight is. They lie down completely crooked to the right, and they think that's straight. So that's what I'm talking about here. What if that model is the correct model? What if that model is a much better way of helping people in pain? And I'm telling you, it is. PRI is not, PRI is not inventing anything that's not already there. It's in the research. People just never used it as that model. They were still seeing things as, if a muscle's tight or painful, start working on that muscle. PRI is saying that's not what it is. You have to give people better proprioceptive sense and mechanoreceptor sense of the ground so that they can appreciate the ground and use the ground to move and have the ground move them. When your foot hits the ground, do you internally rotate your left leg? No. The ground internally rotates your left leg by pushing back on you. So you have to appreciate the ground. And that is the model that seems to work best. We're not going to know absolute truth. However, that model works way better than, your knee hurts, so let's start working on the knee and so let's start strengthening the quad. These people have no sense of what it's like to be on their left leg, so how are you going to fix that knee? How are you going to fix that quad when the brain doesn't even know where the left side is? Once you know that, once you appreciate that, how can you go back to the mechanical model and say, I'm just going to do some squats and do these different exercises? I'm saying like non-PRI exercises. And that's going to fix anything? You're just going to do some leg extensions, or you're going to stretch, or you're going to do different types of split squats and things like that to work on what? These people don't know what they're lacking. You can't go backwards. Once you see it like this, you can't go back to the old way unless you're, I don't know, I can't make a judgment call on that, but once you see it a certain way and you realize, whoa, this is way more about proprioceptive sense and sense of the ground than anything else, you kind of can't see it the same way as you used to. And if you try to teach it that way or simplify it, to simplify PRI, you're not really doing PRI. Which means you're not really doing life. You're not really explaining the way that the body really exists. So conceptually, PRI is not hard to understand. You have a left side or right side. The right side becomes too dominant for a variety of reasons, and you have to learn how to integrate the left side and the right side appropriately again. That's it. But the way you're going to do it is not through addressing muscles necessarily. I mean, you are obviously addressing muscles, but you are addressing the input that the brain uses to produce muscular output. That's how you do it, and that's what all these techniques do. Most other exercises are not doing that because they don't even know that you're working with a pattern to begin with. So the way to influence where this body is positioning itself and where it's orienting itself, things I could not do for 40 freaking years, is through proprioceptive sense and mechanoreceptors. It's all there. You just have to start using it. So in my mind, is PRI difficult to understand? No, it's actually really simple to understand. The difficulty is unwinding, is the change of consciousness from what you've previously learned and what even people who didn't go to physical therapy school or massage school or any of these other schools that teach about the human body and how to help people in pain, they're using a model that's just not that effective, in my opinion. So PRI is not hard to understand. What's hard to understand is unconditioning your mind from the old way of seeing it. And that's about it for me, it was pretty easy because even when I didn't understand all the details, in a model sense, I switched over to the proprioceptive and mechanoreceptive model pretty quickly because of the circumstances of my own life. But that is my answer when people say, oh, PRI is too hard to understand, we have to simplify it. Well, the human body is not, it's not that hard to understand, it's just the way you learned it is misleading, and we're just probably, that model just probably is not that great, and you just have to unlearn it, and that's the hard part.